This 7-drawer Thomasville dresser is about to get an extreme makeover. Stay tuned. Hey everybody, welcome back to Furniture Flipping Teacher. I'm Lauren and I am about to make over this 7-drawer Thomasville dresser, and it is not even going to look like the same dresser when I am finished with it. I have had this idea in my head for so long and I have not came across the perfect piece to create the look that I want until now. But the funny thing is I've actually had this piece for like probably 2 years now, and it's been staring at me in the back of the shop behind me, and I just continue to get these epiphanies about this piece that this is actually the perfect piece to complete the look that I want on this. So stay tuned. It's going to get a crazy transformation. It's going to be unrecognizable when I am finished with it. First things first, we're going to remove the hardware, and unfortunately there is some missing pieces of hardware, and this hardware is super difficult to find online. I did some Google image searching just in case, but I could not find the exact replica of the missing pieces of hardware. So it's gonna have to go, and we're gonna have some big holes to fill. It's cleaning time. I'm gonna be using the Lily Moon Paint Furniture Prep Cleaner. This does not require a rinse, so I'm gonna save that step this time. And then, of course, I'm gonna glove up because this piece is pretty dusty, pretty dirty. I did get this at a thrift store, and I think, if I remember right, it was only like $30 or something like that because of the missing hardware. And that's why I was like, even though it's like hard to find that specific hardware, one, I can always look for it, but then two, if it doesn't work out, I can always replace the hardware. But this is a nice solid wood piece. It's Thomasville. I try to never pass up Thomasville if it's in good condition because it's such a good brand and pretty well known as well. So I'm just gonna spray the surface, and it'll probably need a few rounds of cleaning because of how dusty it is. Yep, pretty dusty, pretty dirty. So when I'm cleaning the fronts of the drawers, I'm also gonna go ahead and take them out, label them so I know exactly where they go back, and then I will also be cleaning on the inside of the piece as well. So like with this top drawer, I will label it R1 because it's the right drawer on, it's the first drawer on the right side. Next thing that I would like to do before I start sanding is to fill in these hardware holes, and they are huge, huge holes. They're like an 1.5 inches wide, and then probably a little, maybe like 3/8 of an inch deep. So really, really deep and wide, and it's just gonna be a little bit difficult to fill with all Bondo. So I was kind of racking my brain, what can I put in there to kind of help not have to put so much Bondo in there, but then also, you know, the more Bondo you put in there, the less likely it might be to kind of get it super nice and flat when you are sanding it down and trying to get it all smooth, and so that you're not going to be able to see the area that you're filling. So I thought of, I've seen people use like the expandable foam and like kind of squirt that in there and then saw it off, sand it off, do some Bondo over it. I didn't really want to do that. I could have put, you know, some little sticks in there or something, but what I actually came up with was to go to the store and grab a 1.5 inch round dowel or rod, and what I'm going to do is I'm just going to cut it to size to like the 3/8 inch or however deep this is, and then I'll cut it with my miter saw and I'll pop it in there, use some wood glue, and then once that's dry, we'll put some Bondo around the outside so that it's just going to be like the most flush, and that's probably going to be the least amount of Bondo necessary. So I need 12 of these cut, and then we'll glue them all in, and then we'll let that dry before we do the Bondo. Let's do it. Okay, so I got all of the little dowels cut. They don't have to be perfect. I can always sand them a little bit if necessary. And then I can also add Bondo like I'm going to anyway if they are too short. So got them all placed, and then I'm just gonna take some wood glue so that they don't like ever pop out. All right, so while the little wood dowel pieces are drying in there with the wood glue, before I go ahead and do any Bondo, I'm just gonna go ahead and start sanding. So this top has some really bad failing finish on the top, which is totally okay. I'm just gonna go ahead and get rid of the whole finish, because once it starts flaking off, there's really no going back without getting rid of it. So I'm just gonna be using my Surf Prep sander, and I've got an 80 grit sandpaper on there, which will just really help me take it away pretty quickly. I'm gonna still be really careful because I do think this is a veneer on the top here, but we will be painting, so if it busts through, it's okay. But we're just gonna go ahead and get started. Let's do it. Next up, I'm going to be mixing up some Bondo here so that we can go ahead and fill in these big holes officially. Bondo is going to be the best option for this because it is just going to hold up the best. It's not going to shrink. It's going to stay and hold its place, and once it hardens up. This is not technically called Bondo, but the JB Wood Restore Putty, that is exactly what Bondo is. It's the same method. So I'm going to go ahead and scoop out. I'm gonna use quite a bit because I have 12 holes, and it's gonna be pretty quick to fill them in. Generally, if you have smaller hardware holes, you're going to want to work in smaller batches than this because this stuff does harden up pretty quickly. So just be careful for how much you're using. You don't want it to go to waste once you're using it. And once it kind of gets on the cardboard or whatever you use, and then you start mixing it with the second portion, it does start hardening immediately. You want to make it all one consistent color. So in this case, it's like a light blue. That means it's all mixed really well. And then I'm just gonna start filling it in the areas. This may take a few applications just because it is a larger area. I'm also gonna use this to kind of help scrape away the excess. I think it might be a good idea to just kind of do one layer at a time. All right, while that Bondo dries, now I am also going to be sanding the base of the piece. I thought about adding a new base and all that jazz, but the look that I'm going for is really going to be great with this current base on, and I'm wanting to leave it wood, so I'm going to sand it back so that I can change the color of it, plus there's a little bit of failing finish there as well. So again, still my 80 grit sandpaper, got that on my Surf Prep sander, and we're gonna go to town with some sanding. I am going to be taping off the bottom here so that when I paint this, it doesn't get on the bottom and we'll stain it last. I've got my green frog tape here. So I did go ahead and do a second round of Bondo on the larger holes. So now I am going to sand that down and we should be good to go. We shouldn't be able to tell that there's Bondo once we get the primer on. All right, it's just about that time where we get to start to prime, but I do have to do one more part in the prep work, which is to wrap the drawers, and then also I'm gonna wipe all of the dust back while I'm here working on each drawer. So I really love to use this plastic that is attached to tape. I have found that it's just the easiest thing to use to wrap the drawers with. It's so simple. All you do is, you know, unroll the roll of the plastic and then tape it to your drawers and unfold it, and then it wraps it up. It's super simple. You don't have to worry about attaching the tape to the plastic and all that. So I have found it just makes things go a lot quicker. Now that all of the drawers are wrapped up, it's time to prime. And I am gonna be priming with a clear primer because I'm gonna go with a darker color and potentially distress. And I don't want any like white or gray primer popping through when I start to distress. And even if I don't distress, that's okay. I'm just gonna take this precaution because plus it's darker wood and I'm going to a darker color. So this is going to work. So we've got Dixie Belle's Bonding Boss in the color clear. I love that they have multiple options for the Boss. Instead of just white and gray, the clear is great for things like this if you like to distress your furniture. Just gonna shake it up nice. And then putting it through my strainer as always. And for this one, I'm gonna be using the Wagner Flexio 5000 for the primer. It does look white, but it dries clear. But that kind of helps you be able to tell like where you've sprayed it and if you've missed a spot and things like this. But it's a bonding and a stain blocking primer, so it's gonna really help the paint adhere, but then also it'll help any stains from like popping through. Even though it's a darker color, sometimes that stain, those stains and the wooded tannins can pop through the final finish, and that's never any fun because then you have to go back and fix it, which nobody wants to do things twice. So I'm taking this precaution, doing the Bonding Boss, and it's awesome that it's now a 2-in-1 formula instead of having to do like kind of choose one or the other. It's also water-based, so it's easy cleanup and you can just clean it up with soap and water. Now now it's time for paint. The primer went on super well. The only caveat to doing the clear primer is that it isn't going to help highlight any like blemishes that you may have missed or just dents and things like that. So we'll be using the first coat of paint for that job. I'm gonna be using the silk paint. The color is called Anchor, and it is a true black. We are going black with this piece because I think that it's just the idea that I have for this piece overall. It's just gonna be magical. So I'm really excited. We're getting to the point where things are gonna start coming together. So again, straining this into my spray gun. I'm switching over to the Home Right Super Finish Max sprayer, simply because I don't really want to clean out the other nozzle right now. And I have other ones, but I'm just switching it up for this first coat of paint. So once this strains in, I am going to add just a tad bit of water. Just kind of want to thin it out a little bit, not too much so that it's too runny, but with the silk paint, generally you're going to want to thin it out to go through your sprayer really well. All right, first coat is on, and I cannot stress enough how much of a difference it is to have a paint sprayer. Whether you need a more of a budget-friendly sprayer, or you're looking for like a mid-range sprayer or even a higher-end sprayer, I highly recommend, if you are trying to up your furniture game, just invest in the sprayer. Start out with this one if you want to. Generally, they're around $80, but they do go on sale. I'm sure that there will be some Black Friday sales, so be sure and be on the lookout for those. I'm always sharing over on my Instagram a bunch of links that I am loving, whether it be related to furniture flipping or even personal things. So make sure you're following me over there. And then if you're interested in learning how to use a spray gun, an electric spray gun like this, or like the Wagner Flexio 5000, I also have a course down below linked for you. There's a beginner course, but then there's also a course just specifically for spraying. So if you want to bundle those two, that's great, but you can also just get the sprayer course. This would be a great time of year to do that for yourself. Just gift yourself a little gift of a guide, of a course of how to use a paint sprayer so that you can up your game on how to spray with a flawless finish, because I guarantee you that one, this would have taken me like maybe 30 minutes at least, maybe 40, maybe an hour to paint this by hand, one coat. And that took me maybe, 5 minutes, maybe 10 minutes, probably less than 10 minutes to spray this 7-drawer dresser. And plus, it's going to just have such a much more flawless finish. It's not going to have the brushstroke marks. It's just going to be chef's kiss. So anyway, enough of my rambling. I am going to let this first coat of paint dry, and then we'll come back for coat number 2. All right, it is time for coat number 2 with this black. It covered so well the first round, so the second coat should be plenty for full coverage, and everything just dried so nicely. There's a little bit of a rough spot on the top here, so I'm just gonna do a quick sand with like a super fine sandpaper. it is time for a top coat. Now the paint that I used, the silk paint, it does have a built-in top coat, but there's just there's a couple reasons why you might want to use a top coat in addition to the all-in-one paint, and that might be just for extra protection and just to make sure that it's really nice and protected. Or in my case, what it is that I want it to be a different sheen. So there's matte, there's satin, and there's like semi-gloss and gloss. I want mine to be a little bit more than matte because that's kind of what the silk paint dries to, is like more of a matte finish. There's like a slight sheen to it, but it's pretty much matte. And I want to have a more of a satin. So I've got my satin clear coat here. And what I'm gonna do is I have a little bit of paint left over in my spray gun. I'm going to go ahead and put that back in the jar because it's more than I need to do what I'm gonna do. Oh, I forgot I already opened it. So I'm just gonna pour this back in there. As much as will come out, and then on the sides there will still be quite a bit of paint in there. And what I like to do with especially darker colors is to mix the top coat with said color, because what it's going to do is going to help eliminate any potential like cloudiness or streaks from showing up on the piece of furniture when you were doing the top coat. Occasionally, especially with the darker colors, it'll show up like worse when that is the case, when like it's like just streaky or cloudy, just meaning like it doesn't look quite right. And so I like to just keep my paint in the sprayer, put a filter in there, and then just pour my top coat directly into the sprayer. That way I don't have to empty it out, and then I'm not wasting any paint by mixing it in there. If you don't want to do this, or if you're brushing on, I would even recommend mixing a little bit of your color of paint in with your top coat. The only thing is, only make the amount that you think you're going to need. Try not to make too much, because once it's contaminated with that color, then you're kind of stuck, and even if you don't need that much, you're gonna have a lot of leftovers. So only put in the amount that you think you might actually need. You can always add more later. That's what I always like to say. So I would rather do a little bit less and potentially have to add some more than to put too much in and then have it be a waste. I don't dilute my top coat at all. It's pretty thin to begin with, so that's something that I try to avoid. And then once it's in there, you'll want to mix it up so that it's all one consistent color. And it might look a little bit scary because it's going to obviously dilute the color. So it's gonna look like it's a completely different color than the original black. And technically it is, it's like more of a gray color, but trust me, it dries just like the paint dries. So don't worry on that. It will actually help your piece just become even that much more flawless. Let's top coat. Sweet, the top coat is all dry now, and I am gonna go ahead and take off this green tape so that I can go ahead and stain this bottom. And we're getting to the last couple of steps of putting this piece back together. We just need to stain this and then add on the new hardware, and then this thing is gonna be good to go. I cannot wait to see the final result. Now what I'm gonna do is tape off the black portion so that I don't get any stain on that, because it will sort of leave a very faint mark, but This will just do a little extra precaution to protect against getting stain on that. I'm gonna use the yellow frog tape because it is more delicate and it should not pull off the paint once I go to take the tape off. So that is why I'm using this one instead of the green. All right, time to stain this base here. So I'm gonna be using the color Tennessee Whiskey on the bottom here. This is a gel stain, water-based by Lily Moon Paint. And I've got a little lid here that I'm just gonna squirt this on, and then I'm gonna use my blue sponge to apply it onto the actual base. I hope I have enough, but I'm also kind of thinking that I might wanna mix some colors. So we're gonna just kind of play around. I definitely want it to be a darker brown, and I'm just not sure if this is dark enough for what I'm thinking. It does have more of those like reddish tones, which I do want as well, but I just don't know if it's dark enough. So I'm gonna get everything I can out of here. I think I'll add a tad bit of a darker color as well. This is called Tobacco Road by Dixie Belle, and it's pretty much the same thing as the smoky gel stain from Lily Moon Paint. I wet my sponge just a little bit right here, and then I'm just gonna dip it in and spread it around. Alrighty, it's time to add on the hardware, and this is what is going to make this piece completely transform. So I got some really neat hardware for the 3 bottom drawers. It looks like this. It's really pretty. And then I'm gonna put 1 on each bottom drawer, and then I'll show you what hardware I got for the longer drawers, and it's gonna be great. This needs to go directly in the middle here. So I'm just gonna be measuring the drawer. I already did make a little template because these holes are super close together. My hardware jig wouldn't go quite that close. And so I just made a little jig out of cardboard. I just kind of traced it, put it right where the holes were, and I'll be able to drill right through that. I just need to make sure that this is in the middle here. Okay. That's pretty much the middle. Now I'll drill my holes. So I went ahead and just taped on all of the hardware pieces just to kind of get some spacing. I just used painter's tape and put it on the back, and I think I've got the spacing how I want it. I also just made sure that everything is going to be nice and even. I have, let's see, 24 pieces of hardware to attach to these 6 drawers. So it's kind of gonna take a while because I really just want to be super precise with this. I'm not going to be using a hardware jig. I'm just going to be measuring, making sure that we are putting them exactly where they need to go. But I mean, just this view is, it's so pretty. It's so good that the end result is definitely what is pushing me through to attach all of these pieces of hardware and have the patience to do so correctly. So we're gonna get started, and then I'll show you the final results. guys, this is one of my favorite pieces that I have ever done. I am so pleased with how this turned out. I worked on the hardware for a very long time. So if one of them is uneven, no, it's not. I spent probably like 2 or 3 hours getting these just perfect, so it could just be perfect. The whole entire piece is perfect, and I am so excited. My gosh, can you tell I'm excited? I'm excited to get this posted on Facebook Marketplace and see how my market takes it. I hope someone loves it as much as I do. I think because this style is kind of in demand right now, I'm thinking of listing it around like $900 or so. There's a lot of storage. It's a pretty big piece. It's Thomasville, and it's very well made. So the solid wood is definitely a desirable aspect as well. All right, so let's talk about the numbers of this piece so that we can determine a potential profit when selling this piece of furniture on Facebook Marketplace. So the piece was about $30 because of the missing hardware. You know, I kind of explained that before, and it was at the thrift store. So great buy-in. Whenever I can get a piece that cheap and it's really nice condition, I'll take it. Next was the, sanding and filling, and that wooden dowel that I used. All of that was around $15. And then the primer and the paint costs me around $50. So that equals out to be $95. Plus the stain, I probably used about $5 worth of stain. So there's $100. And then for the hardware, all of that cost me around $50. So $150 in on this set, or on this one piece of furniture. Really not too bad. Actually, I'm gonna add in the top coat too, forgot about that. So maybe around $175 total for the buy-in and the materials of this beautiful dresser. So if I can sell it for that $900, then we would be at a total profit of $725, which I will definitely take. Although this did take me a little bit longer than maybe a typical piece because of all of the hardware that I added, I still only spent around 8 to 9 hours on this piece in total. So still really great profit for that amount of time spent. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Let me know what you think of this piece down below in the comments. Like I said, I think it's one of my new favorite pieces that I have ever done before. When this piece sells, I will update you guys and with how much. And thanks so much for watching. Thanks for being here. Thanks for supporting me here on Furniture Flipping Teacher. No matter if you have been a long-term subscriber or you're just joining us now, thank you for being here. I really appreciate your support and just being here, because that totally allows me to continue doing what I love, which is helping you guys learn about flipping furniture and ultimately earn extra cash. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you on the flip side.